My wife and brother told everyone her daughter was terminally ill so they could abandon her. Today they learned the truth in the most satisfying way possible. I, 40M, never thought I'd be posting here, but after what happened yesterday, I need to get this off my chest. This is going to be long, so buckle up. For context, my brother Mark has always been the problem child in our family. He was always getting into trouble, making bad decisions, and somehow managing to avoid consequences. When we were growing up, our parents always made excuses for him while holding me to a higher standard. Classic golden child/scapegoat dynamic, I guess. Our dad would lecture me for hours if I got a B+ on a test, while Mark could come home drunk at 16 and they'd laugh it off as boys being boys. This pattern continued into adulthood, with our parents constantly bailing him out of financial troubles while expecting me to be the responsible one. Mark was always charming, though. He had this way of making people like him instantly, which is probably how he convinced my wife to betray me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 15 years ago, my life changed forever. I came home from work to find my 5-year-old stepdaughter Maddie sitting alone in the living room with a note. My wife Tina had left, running off with my brother Mark of all people. On the table were divorce papers, already signed by her. The note was coldly matter of fact: "George, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving with Mark. I've signed the divorce papers. Take care of Maddie for now, you know she doesn't have long anyway. Tina." I tried calling both of them repeatedly, but neither answered. I was completely devastated. How could my wife run off with my own brother? And how could she abandon her own daughter? Maddie looked up at me with those innocent eyes and asked, "Where did mommy go?" I hugged her tight, trying to hold back my tears. Her little hands wrapped around my neck, and I knew in that moment that I would do anything to protect this child. Some backstory: Tina had been a single mom when we met. Maddie's biological father was never in the picture. He disappeared before Maddie was even born. When Maddie was about 4, Tina and I got married, and I loved that little girl like she was my own. We had what I thought was a happy life. I had a steady job at an engineering firm, we had just bought our first house, and we were talking about having another child together. Everything seemed perfect, at least from my perspective. But a few months before Tina left, she started acting strangely. She became distant, started taking more girls' nights out, and was constantly on her phone, smiling at texts. When I asked who she was texting, she'd get defensive. Classic signs of an affair that I was too blind to see. Then one day, she came to me in tears, telling me Maddie was seriously ill and might not live more than 6 months. She claimed the doctors had diagnosed her with a rare degenerative condition. I was shocked and heartbroken, but immediately offered my support. "I'll take care of Maddie for a while," I told her. "You take some time for yourself. We'll get through this together." Tina seemed relieved, almost too relieved in hindsight. I now realized she was already planning her exit and used Maddie's illness as a way to emotionally distance herself. Soon after, she started staying out late. At first, she would come back to visit, but over time, her visits became less frequent. She claimed the emotional burden of watching Maddie's health decline was too much to bear. Eventually, Maddie was with me every weekend while Tina took breaks. When I asked where she was going or why she stayed out so late, she would brush me off. "George, I have my own life to live," she'd say coldly. "You don't understand how hard this is for me. Maddie is my daughter. I'm the one who has to deal with losing her." There was something off about the whole situation, but she dismissed my concerns. I suggested therapy, both for her individually and for us as a couple, but she refused. She said she was handling it in her own way. That way, it turned out, involved sleeping with my brother and several other men. Eventually, I discovered she was dating different men, including Mark. A friend saw her at a restaurant with him, looking very intimate. When I confronted her, she denied everything at first, then shifted to blaming me for not being supportive enough during her time of grief. She would leave Maddie with me without even telling me, sometimes dropping her off at my door without a word. Once, she left Maddie with me for 3 days without calling to check on her, claiming later that her phone had died. I tried to shield Maddie from all of this. The poor kid was already dealing with what I believed was a terminal illness. She didn't need to know her mother was abandoning her too. When I asked Maddie if she knew where her mom went, she just said, "No. Mom doesn't like to talk about it." The poor kid seemed resigned to her mother's absence, which broke my heart. Then one day, Tina left without saying anything at all. The note she left basically said she was leaving with Mark and wasn't coming back. She abandoned Maddie with me, claiming the child was dying anyway. I was left alone to care for a supposedly terminally ill 5-year-old while my wife disappeared with my brother. I was furious and hurt beyond belief, but I couldn't let Maddie see that. She already looked so scared and confused. I knelt down to her level and tried to explain in a way that wouldn't completely crush her. "Maddie, your mom might not be coming back for a while," I said gently. "Why not?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Did I do something wrong? Is it because I'm sick?" Those questions gutted me. Here was this innocent child thinking her own illness had driven her mother away. I struggled to find the right words. "No, Sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Your mom had to go far away, but you have me. I'll always be here for you, okay? I promise I won't leave you. She hesitated, then nodded with a small smile. Pinky promise? Pinky promise, I replied, linking my little finger with hers. From that moment on, it was just Maddie and me against the world. The first few months were incredibly difficult. I had to balance work, childcare, and what I thought were medical appointments for Maddie's condition. My boss was understanding and let me work flexible hours, and I hired a kind older woman from the neighborhood to watch Maddie when I couldn't be home. Maddie was indeed fragile, easily getting tired even from light activities. Tina had claimed she was receiving treatment, but something didn't seem right. The medication Tina had left for Maddie seemed to make her more lethargic, not better. Worried about her health, I took her to see several specialists for a comprehensive evaluation. That's when I learned the truth: Maddie wasn't dying. She was severely malnourished and slightly sedated from the medication Tina had been giving her. The pediatrician pulled me aside after examining Maddie. Mr. Davis, I'm not seeing evidence of the condition your wife described. However, Maddie shows clear signs of malnutrition and possibly some mild sedation. What exactly has she been diagnosed with, and who's been treating her? I was stunned. I explained what Tina had told me, and the doctor's face grew increasingly concerned. I'd like to run some comprehensive tests, but honestly, what this child needs most is proper nutrition and care. Has she been eating regular meals? I remembered how Tina would only feed Maddie things like jelly and bananas. When I asked if that was enough, she'd snap, "It's all she eats, so don't give her anything else." The doctor said not to force her, it will just make her condition worse. I explained this to the pediatrician, who looked horrified. The tests confirmed it. Maddie's diet was seriously lacking in essential nutrients, causing her weakness and lethargy. The medication turned out to be a mild sedative that would make anyone, especially a small child, appear sickly. The doctors were shocked when I told them Tina had claimed Maddie only had 6 months to live. Mr. Davis, the lead doctor said after reviewing all the results, there's nothing terminally wrong with your daughter. With proper nutrition and care, she should make a full recovery. I broke down crying right there in the hospital corridor, tears of relief mixed with rage at Tina's deception. Why would a mother do this to her own child? Was it some twisted form of Munchausen by proxy? Or was she just trying to create an excuse to abandon her daughter without looking like the villain? From that point on, I began learning everything I could about proper nutrition to help Maddie get stronger. I read every book I could find, consulted with nutritionists, and completely redesigned our meals. Every morning, I made nourishing soups packed with vegetables to ensure she got the nutrients she needed. At first, it was hard for her to eat much, but over time, she got better at finishing her meals. Good job, Maddie. You're eating more than before, I'd praise her. Thank you. I'm trying my best, she'd reply with a shy smile. This soup tastes better than mommy's food. I started a food journal, tracking what she ate and how she responded to different foods. Slowly but surely, her appetite improved, and so did her health. Within 3 months of proper nutrition, the change was remarkable. Her eyes were brighter, her skin had a healthier color, and she had much more energy. As her nutrition improved, her strength returned, and so did her bright spirit. The child who had been so lethargic and withdrawn started showing interest in playing and exploring. I began taking her out for light exercise, always following the doctor's recommendations to make sure it was safe. We started with short walks in the park, then progressed to playing on the swings, and eventually to more active games like catch. I just wanted her to have a chance at a normal, healthy life, something Tina had almost stolen from her. Each night, I'd tuck her into bed and listen as she excitedly told me about her day. Today, I played catch and threw the ball farther than before. That's amazing, Maddie. You're getting stronger every day, I'd say, feeling so proud of her progress. It's all thanks to you, George, she'd reply, her gratitude filling my heart with warmth. Though I tried to hide it, sometimes I'd fight back tears of joy seeing how much healthier she was becoming. Watching Maddie grow stronger day by day became my greatest reward. Our family and friends were incredibly supportive. My parents, who had initially sided with Mark, of course, changed their tune when they realized what Tina had done to Maddie. They became devoted grandparents to her. My mom would come over twice a week to help with Maddie, teaching her to bake cookies and tell stories about when I was a boy. My dad, normally stoic and reserved, became a total softie around Maddie, letting her paint his nails and put bows in what was left of his hair. I legally adopted Maddie when she was 7, after hiring a private investigator who confirmed that Tina had no intention of coming back for her daughter. The adoption was straightforward since Tina had essentially abandoned her child and willingly signed away her rights when presented with the paperwork. She didn't even ask for updates about Maddie's health or when the inevitable had happened. The day the adoption was finalized, Maddie asked if she could call me Dad instead of George. I cried again. Seems like I did a lot of that during those years. Good tears, though. Life with Maddie changed me completely. I had to become more patient, more organized, and more emotionally available. I learned to braid hair, to kiss scraped knees, to check for monsters under the bed. I learned to recognize when a stomachache really meant anxiety about a test at school, and when a sullen mood meant trouble with friends. I never remarried after Tina left, though there were a few relationships over the years. None of them stuck, either they weren't ready for an instant family, or they just weren't right for Maddie and me. And that was okay. Maddie gave my life purpose and joy. I dedicated myself to giving her the stable, loving home she deserved. We became a family of two, and honestly, that was enough for both of us. Sometimes, I wondered what had become of Mark and Tina. Not because I missed them or wanted them back in our lives, but just idle curiosity about the kind of people they had turned into. I'd moved on long ago, focusing instead on raising Maddie to be confident and strong. We had our challenges, of course. The teenage years brought their own storms, arguments about curfews, questionable fashion choices, and her first heartbreak at 16 that had me plotting revenge against a boy I'd never met. But through it all, our bond remained unbreakable. The dying girl had grown into a vibrant, determined young woman with dreams of becoming a doctor to help kids like me, Dad. 15 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. Maddie grew from that fragile little girl into a brilliant, determined young woman. She excelled in school, played volleyball, team captain her senior year, made wonderful friends, and recently got accepted to medical school on a partial scholarship. Everything Tina had claimed was impossible for her dying daughter. Yesterday, that idle curiosity about Mark and Tina was unexpectedly satisfied in the worst possible way. Maddie and I were at the mall, shopping for some things she needed for college. We had split up temporarily. She went to look at laptops while I went to pick up a watch I'd left for repair. The watch had been a gift from Maddie on my birthday the previous year, saved up from her part-time job. The inscription read, "To the best dad in the world. Time flies, love doesn't." Maddie. As I was leaving the jewelry store, I heard someone call my name. "Hey, are you George?" I turned around and saw him, an older but unmistakable Mark. My stomach instantly knotted up. His hairline had receded, and he had put on weight, but that cocky smile was just the same. "Mark? It's really you," I said, my voice stiff with shock. "George, long time no see." Mark greeted me with a cheerful smile, acting as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't run off with my wife and helped abandon a child. A chill ran down my spine as memories from 15 years ago flooded back. Just then, a woman walked up beside him. It was Tina, looking older but still recognizable. She had aged, with deep lines around her mouth and eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her hair was dyed an unnatural shade of blonde, and she was dressed like someone trying too hard to look younger than her years. "Hey, what's going on?" "Wait, is that George?" she said with a grin. "Wow, George, you've aged quite a bit, haven't you?" I clenched my teeth, anger boiling inside me. How could they stand there, smiling like everything was fine? Tina had left me and abandoned her own daughter. Maddie and I had silently agreed never to discuss her mother much, but we both knew the truth. Now, here they were, acting as if nothing had happened. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded, no longer caring about making a scene. Tina laughed, brushing off my anger. "Oh, come on, George. Aren't you glad you got to spend time with Maddie? I'm sure it meant a lot to her before, you know." She trailed off, making a vague gesture that I assumed meant Maddie's supposed death. I was speechless at her audacity. Seeing my disgust, she just smirked. "Don't be so mad. Let bygones be bygones. It's been what, 15 years? Water under the bridge." I struggled to stay composed. These two had no remorse for what they'd done. They actually seemed to believe their own narrative, that they'd left Maddie with me as some kind of kindness while she died, rather than abandoning a perfectly healthy child they had deliberately malnourished. "And that brat of mine, how's she doing?" Tina asked casually, while Mark laughed beside her. "Did she finally kick the bucket?" I'm surprised she lasted 6 months, honestly. That's when something inside me snapped. How dare she talk about Maddie like that? But I forced myself to stay calm. Maddie wasn't some dying kid anymore, and they were about to find that out. Mark's grin widened. "Still single, George? Did you miss your chance?" "Tina and I are still madly in love. 15 years and counting." I didn't respond, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Looking at them now, I felt almost sorry for them. Their relationship was built on deception and betrayal. What kind of foundation was that? "Are you still bitter about being left? You can't even ask for alimony or child support, can you?" Tina added smugly. "Not that you'd need it now, considering." I felt a strange sense of satisfaction knowing what was coming. They weren't going to get the reaction they wanted from me. "Well," Tina continued, "Maddie may have been a failed experiment, but our son is perfectly healthy." That caught my attention. I turned to Mark. "You have a son?" "He just turned 14, he replied proudly. "He's the cutest thing ever. Smart too, gets that from his dad." But Tina's face had changed. Her earlier confidence was gone. I sensed there was more to this story. Something in the way she shifted uncomfortably when Mark mentioned the boy being his. "So, you got pregnant after you left?" I asked, watching Tina's expression harden. She looked uncomfortable, and Mark quickly jumped in. "Of course he's mine. He was born a year after we started living together. Not that it's any of your business." Tina flinched at his words, her nervous expression betraying her. Something wasn't adding up. I kept my distance as Mark stepped closer, trying to reassert his confidence. "Well, that's questionable, Mark," I said. "Tina was meeting all kinds of people while leaving Maddie with me." Mark's expression shifted from smug to shocked as the truth began to sink in. I continued, recalling what I'd learned when I hired a detective to investigate them after they ran off. Tina had been seeing other men, not just on weekends but even during the week, while I took care of Maddie. She'd been going out, having fun, and letting others pay for her expenses, all while pretending to be a devoted mother. The detective had uncovered credit card statements showing dinners at expensive restaurants, hotel stays, and gifts, all paid for by different men, including my brother. "No way," Mark muttered, his face pale. "We spent weekends together. How could she have had time to meet other men during the weekdays?" "Mark, while you were at work, she was out enjoying herself," I explained. The detective found receipts, photos, everything. She was seeing at least 3 other men regularly. Mark looked at Tina, stunned. "You told me you were exhausted from working for Maddie's sake. You said you needed rest during the days." Tina stayed silent, avoiding his gaze. She twisted her wedding ring nervously, a gesture I remembered well from our marriage. It was what she did when she was caught in a lie. Mark's voice grew more strained. "Then why did you marry me? Was I just convenient?" Tina didn't answer, clearly hoping the conversation would end. She looked around the mall as if searching for an escape route. "Let me guess," I added calmly. "Mark was the most financially stable out of all the men, wasn't he? Your meal ticket." Tina's eyes widened in panic, and she shouted, "Stop it." Mark stared at her, anger and disbelief written all over his face. "Is that true? Was I just your ATM?" Tina's face turned red with embarrassment, and she didn't respond. I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to find a way to salvage the situation. "I even have recordings," I said, "of conversations with your friends where you called Mark your ATM." I was bluffing, but Tina didn't know that. She froze, realizing the depth of her secrets that I might have uncovered. The detective had mentioned such conversations existed but couldn't legally obtain them. Mark looked devastated, his voice trembling. "So, our son might not even be mine? That's ridiculous." Tina grabbed Mark's arm, desperate to convince him. "He's yours. He looks just like you." Mark didn't look convinced. I stayed calm, watching their relationship unravel before my eyes. Part of me felt bad for my brother. He had been used just as much as I had been, though he'd participated willingly in the betrayal. "You can easily find out with a DNA test," I suggested. Tina's face went pale, her confidence completely gone. She looked cornered, like a trapped animal. "No, there's no need for that. He's Mark's son," she insisted, her voice rising to a near shout. But it didn't matter to me. Tina's protests were meaningless, and Mark's trust in her was clearly shattered. I was here for one reason, to stand up for Maddie after how cruelly they had treated her. "Whatever you two decide to do is your business," I said firmly, "but remember, I've raised Maddie with love and care, and that will never change." Mark and Tina looked defeated as I turned to leave. Just then, I heard Maddie's voice behind me. "Dad, are you ready to go?" I turned and smiled at my daughter. "Oh, I'm sorry to keep you waiting, Maddie." "It's okay. Let's go," she said, walking over to me with a shopping bag in hand. She had grown into such a beautiful young woman, tall and healthy, with a confident stride and bright, intelligent eyes. Mark and Tina stared at her in disbelief, struggling to recognize the confident young woman standing before them. "Wait, is that Maddie?" Tina asked, her voice trembling as she pointed at her daughter. Her face had gone ghostly white, as if she was seeing, well, a ghost. Maddie stood tall in her blazer and jeans, healthy and strong, nothing like the frail child Tina had abandoned. "Yes, this is Maddie," I said proudly. "She's 20 now and thriving." Maddie's calm, steady voice followed mine. "I remember everything, even though I was young. I know who you two are, my biological mother and her lover." Mark looked horrified as he tried to process Maddie's composed but cutting words. Tina seemed to be shrinking before our eyes, her earlier bravado completely evaporated. "But, weren't you supposed to be really sick? I thought you only had 6 months to live," Mark stammered. "No," I interjected. "Maddie was never sick. That 6-month story was something Tina made up. After she left, I took Maddie to the hospital, where the doctors diagnosed her with malnutrition, not any life-threatening illness. All she needed was proper food and care." Tina's face turned bright red with embarrassment. "I tried, but she was such a picky eater," she muttered weakly. "The doctors must have been wrong about her condition." Mark's expression twisted with disgust as he turned to look at his wife. You told me she had some rare disease. You cried about it for months. Maddie eats well now, I said. She's healthy, strong, and even played sports in high school. She was the volleyball team captain her senior year. And I'm studying to become a doctor, Maddie added, so no other kids have to go through what I did. Mark and Tina gasped, shocked by how far Maddie had come. I had no idea, Mark mumbled, looking genuinely remorseful. Tina told me you were terminal. That leaving you with George was the kindest thing we could do. And there's no need for Tina to insult her anymore or call her names, I said, shooting Tina a pointed look. Tina glanced away, ashamed. If she had raised Maddie, her daughter never would have reached this point. She opened her mouth to speak, but Mark cut her off. I want a divorce, he said bluntly. Tina's eyes widened in panic. What? No. You can't be serious, she cried, clinging to his arm. But Mark's expression stayed firm. After learning how you neglected Maddie and lied to me, I can't stay with you. And now I'm wondering if our son is even mine. Tina's voice grew frantic. It's all a misunderstanding. George twisted the truth. But Mark shook his head. You treated me like an ATM, and now I see the truth. I've been blind for 15 years, but I'm not blind anymore. Tina tried to deny it, but Mark was done. I'm finished, he said coldly. He turned to me, his face filled with regret. George, I can never make up for what I've done, but I'm truly sorry. I believed her lies. I should have questioned things, should have checked on Maddie myself. I felt nothing. The anger and betrayal I once harbored had long since faded, replaced by the love and joy of raising Maddie. I've moved on, Mark. Maddie and I have our own lives now, I said firmly. With that, I turned back to Maddie. Let's go, Maddie. Yeah, let's go, she replied, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. As we started to walk away, Tina's voice called out, trembling. Maddie, I'm so sorry. I regret leaving you all this time, she said, tears in her eyes as she stepped closer. You're so beautiful. Maybe we could get coffee sometime? I'd love to get to know you again. Maddie turned to her but held up her hand to stop her. Don't, she said, her voice steady. I remember all the times you pushed me out of the house when strange men came over. Tina's face turned pale. Maddie continued, her tone unwavering. And I remember the day you abandoned me. I remember finding the note and seeing Dad cry when he thought I couldn't see him. I decided then that I'd never forgive you. She looked her straight in the eyes. You're calling him Dad? Tina asked desperately. Yes, Maddie replied without hesitation. George raised me. He's my real father. He's the one who took care of me when I was sick, who came to every school play, who taught me to ride a bike, who helped me with homework, who held me when I cried over stupid boys. What did you ever do except try to starve me and then leave me for dead? Tina stood frozen, realizing there was no chance of reconciliation. Don't ever try to see us again, Maddie said firmly. I don't need you in my life now, and I never will. Tina collapsed in tears as Maddie and I walked away together, heads held high. Update, 1 month later. I thought I'd update everyone since this post got so much attention. A lot has happened in the past month. I heard through mutual connections that Mark did get that DNA test done, and surprise surprise, the son wasn't his. He sued Tina for damages, filed for divorce, and left her for good. Apparently, Tina tried to retaliate by spreading rumors about him in their social circle, but it only backfired and left her further isolated. I've blocked all of Tina's attempts to contact us. She's been sending messages through various channels trying to reconnect with Maddie, but neither of us is interested. Some of her messages have been manipulative, claiming she's ill or in need. Classic narcissist playbook. She even showed up at our house once, but Maddie refused to see her. I've considered getting a restraining order, but so far, a firm leave us alone has worked. As for us, Maddie is thriving. She starts medical school next month and recently got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years. I couldn't be prouder of the woman she's become. Her fiancé is a great guy who knows our whole story and treats Maddie like the treasure she is. Last week, we celebrated her 20th birthday at her favorite restaurant. As we raised our glasses, I said, let's make a toast to adulthood. Cheers, Dad, she replied, clinking her glass with mine. In that moment, I felt truly happy. Despite everything that happened, I know I made the right choices for Maddie. This life we've built together is everything I ever wanted. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born with. Maddie chose me to be her dad, and that's the greatest gift I've ever received. TLDR, my brother and wife ran off together, leaving me with her dying daughter. Turned out she wasn't dying, just malnourished. I raised her to be healthy and successful. 15 years later, we ran into them, and they were shocked to see her alive and thriving. Their relationship imploded when I revealed all the lies. Edit, wow, thanks for all the awards and support. To those asking if Maddie will ever forgive her mom, that's entirely her decision, but right now she has no interest in rebuilding that relationship. And no, I don't feel bad about their relationship falling apart. Actions have consequences. Edit 2. Some people are asking for proof or claiming this story is fake. Believe what you want, but I'm not posting pictures of my daughter or our legal documents online for strangers. This account is a throwaway for obvious reasons.